assistant, can you come outside for a second? And yeah, she knew what had been going on, like the whole team knew. And I said, well, you know the problems we've been having? Well, my hand won't actually pick up the instrument now. So you're gonna have to be my other hand. My left hand is fairly dexterous. I'll use the hemostat with my left hand, and you're gonna have to be my other side with your two hands, and we'll get her safe and get her on her way, and then we'll deal with what we have to deal with.
And then,
And then
I know this whole progression of the story has a continuous and then, and on the other side of it, then it gets brighter and better. But the story at this point in your life, now you're facing the mortality of your career.
Yeah.
What's going through your head?
On one side, there's hope that everything's going to get better and I'm going to get to continue with my dream. And then on the other side is the reality that it might be done. What I've wanted to do for my life for the past 30 years may be done.
Right.
And so the next 6 months went from perfection to really just being in a bowl of chaos. I had insurance coming after me trying to prove that I was a fraud, private investigator following me. I had my team coming at me going like, are we gonna have to sell the practice? Are we gonna lose our jobs? I had patients calling me because they all had my cell phone number, and they're like, so when are you coming back? Because I really need to get some work done by you.
Right.
And unfortunately, the admin that I had also decided to call the patients and tell them that I was injured, and for sure I was going to be back in a month.
Okay.
And
So
we didn't know that.
The clock is ticking.
The clock
at that
is
point.
ticking.
Right.
So over the next 6 months, they're like, but she said she was going to be back in a month. So they kept that in their head. And when you've got phobic patients, they're pretty bonded to you, right?
Very reliant on you.
Yeah, and they don't want to see someone who's potentially just going to temporarily be there. They want to see me because I was the brand.
Exactly.
So 6 months passes. I'm now on the doorstep of bankruptcy, a week away from handing my keys over to the bank and saying, I give up. And one of my patients actually called me, someone who is an astute businessman. He was like, I've been watching what's going on. He said, I know the clinic is changing, not in a good way. And he said, I know you're in trouble. I don't know if you know you're in trouble, but...
So you have a mass of guardian angels around you to some degree.
Yeah.
Right? So that's a pretty powerful story.
So he offered to actually fly me down to the Mayo Clinic and pay for my expenses, and then I could pay him back when I got back on my feet.
Okay.
I felt a little bit uncomfortable with that. Maybe it's just I don't accept charity well, or I didn't want to have that responsibility on me, but I was like, well, I'm a week away from bankruptcy anyway, so throw
wall.
some more on the pile.
You've hit desperation again at its highest level. So let me ask you this, because you looked at the mortality of your clinic once, and now you're facing these personal issues, physical issues. Did your mind ever revert back to that darker place, or had you gotten past that? You knew you were going to do whatever it takes.
I had gotten past it.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm not saying I didn't have dark moments in those 6 months as everything went to rock bottom, but there was still that fight in me.
Good.
Because I still felt like I had a purpose, and the fact that potentially I would get back to my career, there was still that fight to try and get back there.
And so what happens? You end up flying to the States.
So I go down to the Mayo Clinic.
And diagnosis, prognosis, procedure, what will happen next?
So they poked and prodded me and did lots of interesting things. Electric shocked me too, through the nerves and whatnot. So, but by the end of 3 days, they had a diagnosis for me. So I had something called focal dystonia.
Focal dystonia.
Yeah.
That was the first one. First time I've ever said that. Explain.
So what it is if you have a genetic predisposition to it, if you're someone who is overusing your manual dexterity, what happens is by overusing it, you actually damage your brain. And then the chemistry for your relaxation and contraction of your fine motor movement reverses.
Okay.
So it makes it so your hand is uncontrollable. And the symptoms were like at the end of the day, I couldn't type my notes. I was having problems like even holding on to my drill and whatnot. So it had been presenting for a long time, and then it got super escalated those last 4 months until the hemostat incident.
Now, is this rare because we have that repetitive motion and movement in our industries? Is it something that shows up and people aren't even aware that they have it?
Yes. There's not that, it usually happens later in their career. Like I'm pretty young for it to have happened, but they said because of the nature of the work that I was doing with the IV sedation and phobics, I was pushing it a lot of hours to get people onto the other side of things so that they wouldn't have to come back and get sedated again. So they said if I'd been doing pediatrics, maybe I would have gotten a year or two more out of my arm, but they said it was inevitable.
And irreversible, I'm assuming.
Yeah, it continues to get worse. So the doctor told me what was wrong, and I must have looked at my left hand because she said, if you try and train your left hand, you'll lose your left hand too. And then she put her hand on my shoulder and said, I'm so sorry, but...
I'm so sorry.
yeah. But you're gonna have to figure out what you want to do with the rest of your life, because you're not gonna be a dentist anymore.
And in that moment,
I honestly felt relief, because those 6 months of being stuck between hope and wondering whether I would get to go back, at least now she cleared a pathway for me to
Okay.
actually make some decisions and start getting life back on track.
okay. So, and I'm actually glad that you said relief, because I could see where it could go revert back very quickly to
Absolutely.
chaotically going down without
The
control,
rabbit hole,
right?
yeah.
Down that rabbit hole. So, you've been at the top of your game, you faced mortality, you faced physical challenge, you're reinventing yourself almost for the third or fourth time
Mhm.
at a very young age.
Mhm.
What's the next step?